Guys, okay, boss. Guys, please check your audio and video settings, please. Okay. Yeah, people are asking me what is the meaning of this strike off. I'm asking you people assume. I'm asking you people assume only Flipkart.java is there in your project. No other files are there in the project, right? No other files are there in the project, right now, boss? No other files are there in the project. Clear, my dear? Okay. No other files are there in the project. Clear, my dear? Okay, guys. What do you mean by Pavan Kumar Matti, guys? No classes exist. Well, how can you say no classes? Flipkart is still there now, boss. Flipkart is still there, right? I don't know where you think about what you think. Yeah. So total how many scopes that Spring Bean can be managed, guys? In how many scope that Spring Bean can be managed? 6. What is the default scope? What is the default scope? Singleton. How to specify scope in XML driven configuration? Scope attribute of bean tag. How to specify scope in annotation driven configuration? @scope, right? @scope, right? In XML driven configuration, @scope. In XML driven configuration, scope attribute, right, boss? Okay. Understanding my statement? Okay. Tell me how many scopes? Yesterday we completed singleton prototype. What do you mean by singleton, guys? What do you mean by singleton? Across the multiple ctx.getBean method calls, it will use the same object or not? How it will reuse the same object? By keeping in internal cache, right? What is prototype scope, guys? For every request, for every ctx.getBean method call, one new object for Spring Bean will be created or not? Super. Tell me total how many scopes are there? 6 are there. What are the leftover scopes, guys? Request, session, application, WebSocket. Okay, all these things can be demonstrated in standalone environment? No. Where we can feel them? In web application. When we learn web applications in Spring, when we get into Spring Web MVC module, when we learn Spring Web MVC module. So these 4 scopes demonstration, practical demonstration happens where? In web application development. Right now, boss? In web application environment. So today we are going to understand what is what. If you know already Servlet JSP, you will enjoy these scopes, guys. If you don't know, just follow the statements. You will get to know more about it when you go for web application development. I hope there are few people who know Servlet JSP, at least servlets. Yeah. So those people, please be active more. Advanced Java course, guys. Scope is equal to request or @scope request, guys. Scope is equal to request or @scope request. Makes the IOC container to keep Spring Bean class object in request object. In request object. As the request attribute value. As the request attribute value. That means this Spring Bean class object is specific to each request, guys. This Spring Bean class object is specific to each request. And those who know Servlet JSP, if I give 10 requests to Servlet component, how many request objects will be created, guys? How many request objects? 10 request objects. 10 request objects will be created, right? 10 request objects will be created. Yes or no, na boss? Am I audible, guys? Am I loud and clear? If you feel some audio problem, check your side, check your network bandwidth. Stop using mobile data to attend the classes. Start attending classes using Wi-Fi. Okay, guys. In web application, for every request, one separate request object will be created. Inside that object, Spring Bean class object is placed. So when scope is request, guys, when the scope is request, this scope can be used only in web application, can be used only in Spring MVC applications, right, boss? In Spring MVC application, we store form data in one special Java Bean class object called model class object. But the form data will change request to request. So better to take model class. Model class Spring Bean scope as the request scope. Model class Spring Bean scope as the request. Are you getting my point? Okay. Array, from 10 different places, 10 people can submit the same form data. Okay. But every form data is different. So since a request object is created on one per request basis, it's better to store each form data into what? Spring Bean class object, which will be placed in each request object, which will be placed in each request object. Understanding my statement? So that is the meaning of request scope. But you try to feel request scope in standalone environment, guys. You try to feel request scope in standalone environment. Can we feel it, guys? Okay, guys. Go to Flipkart. Instead of prototype, you write a request. You write request, guys. So, strategy DP test, guys. Run as a Java application. Illegal state exception. No scope is registered for scope. No scope is registered for scope name request. Error is coming now, boss. Why error is coming? Tell me. Because in standalone application, we cannot feel practically request scope. Request scope can be enjoyed only in web applications, right, boss? Super. What is the next one? Yeah, we have to wait until I launch Spring MVC, boss. Tell me next one. Scope is equal to session or at the rate. Scope is equal to session or at the rate session. Is the charging happening, boss? I think charging is happening now. Okay, it's happening. Okay. Scope is equal to session or at the rate to scope is session. Okay, what is the next session? This one. Those who know servlet, session object is created on one per request, one per browser software. Session object is created on one per request, one for browser software. One per browser software of client mission, right? If a Spring Bean scope is a session, the Spring Bean class object will be placed inside the session object. That means it will be created on one per browser software. One per browser software of client mission. One per browser software of client mission. For IE browser of client mission, one separate Spring Bean class object. For Chrome browser of client mission, separate Spring Bean class object. For Internet Explorer browser, one separate what? Spring Bean class object. Why? Because for Mozilla, separate Spring Bean class object will be created. Because session object is always specific to browser software of a client. Always specific to browser software of a client device. Clear, my dear? Got it? Makes the IOC container to keep the Spring Bean class object in session scope as a session attribute value. As a session attribute value. That means this Spring Bean class object is specific to browser software. This Spring Bean class object is specific to browser software. Same Spring Bean class object will be used across the multiple requests given by browser software, guys. Makes the IOC container to keep Spring Bean class object in session scope as a session attribute value. That means Spring Bean class object is specific to browser software. Same Spring Bean class object will be used across the multiple requests given by a browser software of a client machine. Of the client machine. Super, guys. Tell me, this scope is specific to web application. That means can be used in Spring MVC application. It is not useful outside the web application, guys. If Spring Bean wants to store login details like username, password, then we can take Spring Bean scope as a session scope. In Facebook or Gmail, login details are specific to each browser software of client mission, na boss. Login details are specific to each browser software of client mission, na boss. If you want to store username, password, login details, username, password in Spring Bean class object, then we prefer taking Spring Bean class object scope as what? Session scope. The people who are having servlet knowledge, they will enjoy these scopes, guys. Okay. Request scope means Spring Bean class object is specific to each request. Because it allocates memory inside the request object. Request object is one per request, guys. Session scope means what? Spring Bean class object is kept inside the session object, and Spring Bean class object is same across the multiple requests given by a browser software of a client mission. After all, session object is specific to each browser software of a client mission. Okay, next one. What is there, guys? We need not to create session object manually. We need not to create what? Request object manually. All these objects will be taken care by web application environment. Web application environment. Scope is equal to application at the rate scope application, guys. At the rate scope application. Everyone getting my point? Tell me, guys. Keeps the Spring Bean class object in servlet context object, guys. as a servlet context attribute value. Are servlet context object is one per web application na? Servlet context object is automatically created object one per web application. So Spring Bean class object is kept inside the servlet context object. So that's why it becomes one per web application or not. It becomes one per web application or not. It definitely becomes one per web application. Everyone getting my point? Here Spring Bean class object is one per entire web application. This scope, web application specific scope, that means can be used only in a Spring MVC application. If Spring Bean wants to store global data in application of the application like request count, admin email ID and etc., then place Spring Bean in application scope. Then place Spring Bean in application scope. Everyone understanding my statement, guys? Can we feel these things practically in standalone applications? No. Why? Because these scopes can be used only in the web applications. Okay, now listen, guys. Request object is specific to each request. So Spring Bean scope is request means it is specific to each request. Session object is specific to each browser software of a client machine. So Spring Bean scope is session mean. Okay, Spring Bean object also specific to each browser software of client machine. Okay, next. Spring Bean scope is what? Application. Okay, since servlet context object is one per web application, Spring Bean object also will be created on one per web application basis. One per web application basis. Understanding my statement, guys? Sir, I have a question now. Singleton one object, application also one object. Yes, na boss? Singleton one object, application is also one object. What is the difference between application scope and singleton scope? Now listen. Application means one per entire web application. Singleton means one per bean ID. One per bean ID. Suppose same class is configured having singleton with a different bean ID. Having that bean ID, one more object will be created, right now, boss? Having that bean ID, one more object is created with respect to singleton. But when a Spring Bean scope is application in entire website, single object. But when it comes to singleton, guys, with respect to first bean ID, one object, with respect to second bean ID, one more object may be created, right? If same class is configured as what? Two Spring Beans. If same class is configured as two Spring Beans, that can be done or not? Super. Singleton scope, application scope, guys. This scope can be used in standalone application and web application, guys. A singleton scope can be used in standalone application and web application. Next, what is there? Application scope, guys. This scope can be used only in web application, Spring MVC applications. What is the module we have in Spring to create the web applications, guys? Spring MVC. In this scope, one Spring Bean class object will be created on one per IOC container. With respect to one IOC container, one object. Right now, boss? Suppose in one application I have taken 2-3 IOC container. There's a chance of creating 2-3 objects now, boss. In this scope, the Spring Bean class object will be created on one per web application basis. It will go by a web application. It will go by container. If you take 2-3 IOC container, 2-3 objects, guys. But if you take 2-3 IOC container in one web application, then also one object. Where application scope, guys. If one application is having 10 IOC container, then it creates 10 objects for one singleton scope Spring Bean. 10 objects, 10 IOC container, 10 objects. Right now, boss? Okay. Here, if one web application is having, if one web application is having 10 IOC containers, then it creates single object for application scope Spring Bean. Single object for application scope Spring Bean. Single object. Here 10 objects. Convinced, guys? I hope you convinced, guys. Singleton means specific to each IOC container. Application means specific to each web application. In one application, if I take 10 IOC container, then there is a chance of creating 10 objects for same singleton scope Spring Bean. Here, 10 IOC container, you take 20 IOC container, you take. For entire web application, it creates only one object. It creates only one object. Super, guys. What is the next scope, guys? WebSocket scope, guys. Scope is equal to WebSocket at the rate scope WebSocket. Scope is equal to WebSocket at the rate scope WebSocket. Everyone getting my point? At the rate scope WebSocket or at the rate scope WebSocket. Now listen, guys. Like HTTP protocol, a browser and website will communicate using which protocol? HTTP. Come on, guys. Come on. Like browser and what is the protocol that is used between browser and website? HTTP. But as extension of HTTP protocol, we are getting what? We are getting what? Alternate protocol called WebSocket protocol. Guys. WebSocket protocol. So then what is the difference between HTTP and WebSocket? HTTP is off duplex communication protocol. WebSocket is full duplex communication protocol. Okay, duplex, I will explain. Off duplex, full duplex. Duplex means what, guys? HTTPS is the extension of HTTP with security, boss, nothing else. HTTPS is purely for security. Duplex house, you know, why it is called duplex house? From ground floor to first floor, there will be staircases, right? There will be staircases. Okay, now time has come. What is half duplex? What is full duplex? Now listen. Communication is there between browser and website, guys. But when I say half duplex, without asked by browser, website cannot send anything to the browser. Website sends everything to the browser only on request. Right now, boss? Come on. Forget about house example. What is half duplex? Half duplex means, see, browser sends the data, server sends the data. Browsers gives the inputs, web application gives output. But everything happens, everything happens on the initiation taken by browser. Without taking initiation from browser, do you think website can send anything to browser? Directly, indirectly, every time browser should ask, website should send. Every time browser should ask, website should send. Right now, boss? Browser should ask, website should send. Wait, Babu. First, let me explain half duplex and full duplex. Yeah, listen. HTTP is a half duplex protocol. That means web application gives a response to browser only when request is given. Check it out. Browser gives a request to 1, then web application gives response 1. Then browser gives request to 2, then web application gives response 2. Is there any chance for web application giving voluntary response, guys, without getting request? Is it possible in regular website? Look at gmail.com. First we type gmail.com, request 1. You will get the home page. Response 1. We fill up the username, password, click on login button, request 2. Then we will get the inbox page. Response 2. We click on what? One email hyperlink, request 3. That email message is opened. Response 3. Everything is coming from server only with request given by browser. Only with the request given by browser. Right, boss? I hope you understood, guys. Are you understanding my statement? This is half duplex, guys. Look at the full duplex. This communication is half duplex. Web application server cannot give anything to browser, right? Anything to browser without getting request from browser. Without getting request from browser. Understanding my statement? Look at what? HTTP protocol based half duplex communication. Look at WebSocket protocol based full duplex communication, guys. Browser has given request, guys. Because of this, connection is established. Now web application is free to give response 1, response 2. Okay, response 2 is coming without giving request 2. Did you notice it? That means once connection is established, server can use that connection to deliver any number of results. But here, for every result to send, there should be separate connection establishment from the client. There should be separate connection establishment from the client. WebSocket protocol based full duplex communication, guys. WebSocket protocol based full duplex communication. Everyone getting my point? Super. Here full duplex communication is enabled. That means server or web application can pass client specific information to client or browser continuously, though client is not sending request. Though client is not sending any request. Web level chatting applications like FB Messenger, Gmail chats. Gmail chats, guys. Are once we log into inbox, chat box will come. Chat box will come. First time we say hi to opposite person. Next time onwards, though we are not responding, he can continuously send messages, na boss. Only one time request is required, guys. Reminding all the time, server is continuously can send messages to client. This is called full duplex communication. This is called full duplex communication. Convinced, my dear? Alexa, activate balcony central light. Okay. Example in nareshit.com. In nareshit.com, everything will come only when you request it. Yes, na boss? Gmail login page, inbox page, Gmail login page, inbox page. Are you getting my point? All these are what? If you request, then only response will come. But when it comes to FB Messenger, Gmail chats, okay, once connection is established, opposite person can send messages continuously or not. Okay, now we understood the difference between HTTP and what? WebSocket, guys. HTTP and WebSocket, right? HTTP is off duplex communication, Ram. Off duplex communication, Ram Babu. And what is next one? A WebSocket is full duplex communication, right? Okay. You want more simple example to understand? Okay. HTTP is like cracking each bomb separately. In Diwali festival, we take each cracker and we crack separately. I think there will be rocket bombs, na boss. Otherwise, small bombs. Each bomb you have to fire separately. Then only bomb will crack, right? Then only bomb will crack. WebSocket is like what? 1,000 wala? 1,000 wala, 10,000 wala. We switch on one, remaining all connected nicely, boss. Okay, guys. Tell me next one. WebSockets scope is specific to web application. It can be used in Spring MVC application by enabling WebSocket protocol. If Spring Bean scope is WebSocket, its data can be used across the multiple requests given by client as part of full duplex communication. As part of full duplex communication. Understanding my point? When a WebSocket protocol is enabled, if you want to use client data across the multiple requests, then store that data in Spring Bean object whose scope is WebSocket. Whose scope is WebSocket. Okay, this is also web application specific scope, guys. Clear, my dear? Super. Tell me. Okay, with this explanation about all the 6 scopes are over, boss. Okay, some interesting questions, boss. How to make prototype scope bean, Spring Bean, participating in pre-instantiation in application context container based Spring application. Yes, na boss? Do you think application prototype scope beans participate in pre-instantiation, guys? Do you really think prototype scope beans participate in pre-instantiation? No. Do you think their objects are created when IOC container is created? No. But I want to see that. First listen, bra. First listen. Who asked answer? Okay, guys. Yeah, reason. But there is one possibility. What is that possibility, you know? You take singleton scope bean as a target bean and take its dependent bean scope as prototype. Singleton scope participates in pre-instantiation. That means object creation. Then and there it try to complete injections. But the bean, what you want to inject is what? Prototype scope, right? But to complete injection along with the pre-instantiation, somehow pre-instantiation is indirectly enabled on prototype scope spring bean or not, which is a dependent bean. Okay. Take prototype scope bean and make it as dependent to singleton scope target bean. So indirectly prototype scope bean participate in pre-instantiation or not? Indirectly the prototype scope bean participate in pre-instantiation or not? I want reply. Arey, you are not rich boy, but you want to become rich. What's the easiest way? What's the easiest way? Okay, marry a rich girl. Marry a rich girl. Girl is rich since she married a poor boy, but she cannot live luxury life on her own, right? She cannot enjoy luxury lavish life on her own singly. So she has to sell drugs. First think positively, Babu. Right now, tell me. Bank robbery, all these are secondary option. Easiest option in target dependent mode is marrying a rich girl. Marrying a rich girl, right? So when you marry a rich girl, since already she is having lavish life, so indirectly you are also enjoying lavish life, na boss? Yes or no, na? But rich girls are more intelligent, Rabo. They look for more richer boys. So there's the difference. Okay. Rich girls are more intelligent, Rabo. They look for more richer boys. Boy always look for beautiful girl, not the rich girl. But girl always look for settled boy, not rich boy, settled boy. Okay. That's a fact. That's a fact. We have to accept it. Maybe 1-2 exceptional cases will be there. 1-2 exceptional cases will be there, right? I'm not talking about exceptional cases. And there's no wrong in that. Again, I am telling there is no wrong in that. There is no wrong in that. Why someone should lose their life by marrying an unsettled person, right? There's no wrong in that. I'm not saying it's going wrong. It's going correctly only. Because when you want to become family head, when you want to start a family, when you want to become family head, definitely you should have responsibility of settlement. You should give confidence to opposite person. Yes, you can lead the life. You can lead the family. You can definitely lead the family, right? Are you getting my point, boss? Yes. Look at the answer. Okay, look at the practicals, guys. Spring bean scope. What is the dependent bean I'm injecting here? DTDs. Courier dot name DTDC. Courier.name DTDC. Is that clear? DTDC. Wantedly, I have taken DTDC as what? Everyone, please focus. Everyone, please focus. Wantedly. Wantedly. Okay. Sai Maunika, can you concentrate on the subject first? At the rate scope. Prototype. At the rate type prototype. I'm also taking one more bean as being prototype scope, guys. I'm also taking blue dart having prototype scope, right? Super. Now you run the client application here. You run the client application here. Run as Java application. Okay, illegal state because we have taken wrong scope here. So target I am taking singleton. Target I am taking singleton. Right now, boss? Come to here. Java application. Listen. Flipkart is created when you start the container because it's a singleton. DHL is created because it's a singleton. Blue dot is not created as part of pre-instantiation because it's a prototype. But DTDC is created though it is having prototype. Why? Why? DTDC class object is created through pre-instantiation though it is having prototype scope. Why, guys? Because it is made as a dependent to singleton scope target. It is made as dependent to target Spring Bean whose scope is singleton. And when IOC container is created, all singleton scope Spring Beans are instantiated, pre-instantiated. Pre-instantiated, right, boss? All singleton scope Spring Beans are pre-instantiated. All singleton scope Spring Beans are pre-instantiated, guys. Say something, my dear. Say something, my dear. Okay. And when instantiation is done, then only injection will happen. Injection will happen. Okay. Injection. What is the dependent? CR. CR is pointing to DTDC now, boss. CR is indirectly pointing to DTDC, right? Okay. CR is pointing to DTDC. Understanding my point? Tell me. Tell me, boss, what happened? So actually prototype scope is what? DTD is having prototype scope. But in order to complete injection on singleton scope, as part of pre-instantiation, though dependent is prototype, okay, it also participate in pre-instantiation or not? It also participate in pre-instantiation or not? I want reply. Did you notice it? If you miss yesterday's class, it looks totally different because yesterday we started. Okay. It is totally continuation of yesterday's discussion. What is the question, boss? What is the question? How to make prototype scope Spring Bean participating in pre-instantiation in application context container based Spring application. Generally, prototype scope beans participate in pre-instantiation, guys? No. No, right? But I want to see participating them in what? Pre-instantiation. Actually, which beans participate in pre-instantiation? Singleton. If I make prototype scope bean as a dependent to singleton scope's target bean, indirectly prototype scope beans also participate in pre-instantiation or not? Indirectly prototype scope beans also participate in pre-instantiation or not? Indirectly prototype scope string beans also participate in pre-instantiation or not? Okay, guys. Tell me, who is the target? It's the target spring bean, guys. It's the target. What is this? Dependent. It is dependent. Tell me, boss, along with this target, dependent also participate in pre-instantiation or not? If you take prototype scope spring bean as a dependent to targets singleton scope spring bean to support dependency injection that takes place during the pre-instantiation of target singleton scope spring bean, the dependent prototype spring bean also will be pre-instantiated. Will also be instantiated. I hope you convinced it, guys. Okay, guys. Look at these messages. Guys. Any message that came before this line are coming because of container creation. Check it out. Here, container creation, then line. Okay, these messages are coming means they are happening when container is created. DHL is created because it is what? Singleton scope. DHL object is created because it is having singleton scope, right? Okay. Next, Flipkart object is created because it is having what? Singleton scope. DTDC object is created though it is having prototype scope. Why? Because it is dependent to target singleton scope, Flipkart. Target singleton scope, Flipkart. I hope you convinced it, guys. Come on. Next. Yeah, how to stop pre-instantiation on singleton scope spring bean. Okay, then some few more questions are there. Anyhow, they are there in the today's document. Okay, we will discuss that. Same. How to stop pre-instantiation on singleton scope spring beans. Array singleton scope spring beans participate in pre-instantiation. We know that. Okay, remaining scopes are lazy instantiation. We know the fact. Right, boss? Tell me. I want to ask spring container. This spring bean scope is singleton, but I don't want to have pre-instantiation. Okay, in XML level, we have to use a lazy init is equal to true. Lazy init is equal to true. In annotation level, @lazy. Annotation level, @lazy. In XML level, lazy init is equal to true. Shall we see that? Okay, go to Flipkart, guys. I kept @lazy. 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 Our default value is 2 only. @lazy. Run as Java application. See, Flipkart object is created above line, after line. Above line, after line. After line means on demand object created or not. Okay, I comment this also, boss. To give the feeling no pre-instantiation for Flipkart. Run the application. Only DHL class object is created or not? Only DHL class object is created or not? Everyone, guys, getting point here, guys, getting clarity, boss. DHL zero param constructor. DHL zero param constructor. Clear, boss? Let's have a look, guys. At the rate lazy. At the rate lazy. Another interesting question, guys. Another interesting question. Okay. No, we are not switching off object creation. We are asking IOC container, don't create a singleton scope bean when you through pre-instantiation process. You create it when there is a need. When there is a need. Indirectly, we are enabling lazy instantiation. Indirectly, we are enabling lazy instantiation. Okay, lazy instantiation on singleton scope beans. We are not switching off. We are not switching off. When their objects will be created, whenever, hey, scope is not changed, guys. Whenever we call ctx.getBean method, then object creation will take place. Then the object creation will take place. Object is created, but lately on demand object will be. Yeah, next question is very, very interesting, Rama. I have 10 spring beans. In that, I want to see 5 spring beans participating in pre-instantiation and another 5 spring beans not participating in pre-instantiation. Can you tell me what should we do? Can you tell me what should we do? Lazy means don't create singleton scope spring bean class object as part of pre-instantiation. Create it when need is there. So indirectly disabling eager instantiation, enabling lazy instantiation. Yes or no, na boss? Okay. At the rate lazy or lazy init is equal to true. At the rate lazy or lazy init is equal to true. Enables the lazy instantiation on the singleton scope spring beans. On the singleton scope spring beans. Super, guys. Tell me, guys. Enables lazy instantiation on singleton scope spring beans. So indirectly disables pre-instantiation. Disables the pre-instantiation. Super, guys. I have 10 spring beans. In that, I want to see 5 spring beans participating in pre-instantiation Another 5 spring beans not participating in pre-instantiation. Can you tell me what should I do? I have 10 spring beans, guys. Now, this is logical question, guys. This is logical question. I want to see 5 spring beans participating in pre-instantiation. I want to see 5 spring beans participating in pre-instantiation. Another 5 spring beans not participating in pre-instantiation. What should I do? Okay, there are 2 possibilities, guys. Okay, first, what is the first possibility? Out of 10 spring beans, take 5 spring beans as what? Singleton scope beans. Another 5 spring beans as what? Prototype scope beans. And make sure that prototype scope spring beans are not dependent to singleton scope spring beans. And this is the easiest way now, boss. Make sure that prototype scope spring beans are not dependent spring beans to singleton scope target spring beans. Singleton scope target spring beans. Right now, boss? Take all 10 spring beans having singleton scope spring beans, but enable lazy instantiation on 5 spring beans and don't make lazy. See the second answer. Take 5 spring beans having singleton scope spring beans. Take another 5 spring beans as prototype scope spring beans, but don't make prototype scope spring beans as dependent spring beans to target singleton scope spring beans. Right now, boss? This is the one answer. Another answer is what? Take all 10 spring beans as singleton scope spring beans. But on 5 spring beans, don't enable lazy instantiation. On another 5 spring beans, enable lazy instantiation. Enable lazy instantiation of 5 spring beans and don't make lazy instantiation enabled on spring beans as a dependent spring beans to target spring beans. Everyone getting my point, guys? Don't make a lazy instantiation enabled spring beans as dependent spring beans to target spring beans. All 10 singleton scope, but 5 beans should have a lazy instantiation. Okay, these lazy instantiated spring beans should not be dependent to another 5 target singleton scope beans. Right, boss. What is the default bean ID for spring bean? In XML driven configuration, fully qualified class name #n. I think we already had a discussion, guys, on default bean IDs. We already had a discussion. Remember, boss? I hope you remembered that. Fully qualified class name #n. First one #0, second one #1. Remembered? Okay. In annotation driven environment, class name. In annotation driven environment, class name, first letter, small letter. First letter, small letter. We discussed this one earlier, right? We already discussed this in previous class. Okay. Listen, though there are so many injections, guys, interviewer specifically ask one question called, what is the difference between setter injection and constructor injection? What is the difference between setter injection and constructor injection? Shall we start understanding it, guys? Interviewer specifically ask what is the difference between setter injection and constructor injection. IOC container uses setter method for setter injection. IOC container uses parameterized constructor for constructor injection. In the XML configuration, we use property tag for setter injection. In XML driven configuration, we use constructor-arg tag for constructor injection. In annotation driven configuration, we place @auto-void annotation on the top of setter method for setter injection. In annotation driven configuration, we place @auto-void annotation on the top of parameterized constructor for constructor injection. Super. injects the dependent Spring Bean class object to target Spring Bean class object. Target Spring Bean class object bit slowly, because injection takes place after creating target class object. First object has to be created, then setter method to inject dependent to target. Injects dependent to Spring Bean class object to target Spring Bean class object bit fastly, because the injection takes place along with the target class object. The injection takes place along with the target class object creation and initialization. The injection takes place along with the target class object creation and initialization. Convinced, boss? Enjoyed, my dear? Because the injection takes place along with the target class object creation and initialization. Along with the target class object creation and initialization. Clear? Array, constructor execute while creating object. Setter method execute after creating object. So setter injection is bit slow na compared to constructor injection. Super. Right. Here IOC container creates first target class object, then dependent class object. Array, first target object created completely, then it will become ready to inject dependent class object. Okay, guys. Here IOC container creates dependent class object first and uses that object as the constructor argu value while creating target class object. So here first target, then dependent, guys. Here first dependent, then target. Here first dependent, then target. Come on, convinced or not? Come on, convinced or not? First target, then dependent object creation. Here first dependent, then target. Why? Dependent object has to be used as the constructor argument value while creating target class object. So first it keeps dependent ready. First it keeps dependent ready. Then it keeps a target. Uses that object in the creation of target. Uses that object in the creation of target, boss. Clear, boss? Okay. Yeah, some video links I have given. Don't worry. Same links I will try to give there also. Yeah. So this is about Spring Bean scopes, guys, and the differences between setter injection and constructor injection. Differences between setter injection and constructor injection, guys. Okay. Let's share some content to you people. Spring full stack, guys. Okay, let me upload today's document. Then I will give the rest of the content. Right, boss. Class content, Spring here, 6.4, Spring core module. Yes, this is the one. Sir, we are just in core module, right? If you ask me when course will complete, what can I do? Tomorrow topic, differences between Bean Factory container and application context container. Okay. I should change the data. Date is having any problem? Oh, March 17th. This is gone wrong. 1 minute. I'll change the date. I think by mistake it has come as March 15th. This is the 14th, right? I think the Spring core module needs another 4-5 sessions. Next Spring JDBC will start, guys. Yeah, listen, guys. Those are looking for new Spring batch, Spring Boot and microservice batch. Yeah, to learn Spring JDBC, plain JDBC is the prerequisite. Yeah, fee of this batch is 8K, guys. My advanced Java batch we are planning, boss. We will let you know. We will let you know. Some discussions are going on, slots. Okay, if you are looking to enable only Spring Boot, when Spring Boot is started, I will give separate